He didn't even look me in the eye when he fired me. After 10 years of building award-winning designs, working weekends, and carrying his firm through 3 economic downturns, my boss handed my promotion to his 23-year-old nephew and then fired me on the spot. No warning, no thank you. Just, we're going in a new direction. I'm Nina Torres, and up until that day, I thought loyalty meant something. I was the lead architect at Caldwell and Rourke Design in Manhattan. I worked my way up from unpaid intern, stayed quiet through office politics, and held that company together when other senior staff quit. I brought in our biggest client 2 years ago, an $80 million high-rise downtown. That building should have been my legacy. Instead, it became my last project. It all started when I saw the email announcement. Tyler Caldwell appointed Director of Design Strategy. My heart dropped. Tyler? The kid who once submitted a blueprint with Comic Sans labels? Guy who left a client meeting early because his energy coach told him to avoid confrontation? I thought it was a mistake. So I walked into Mr. Rourke's office, my boss for a decade, and asked for clarification. He didn't look up from his laptop. It's a family decision. A family decision, I repeated, trying to keep my voice steady. What about my promotion review? You said we'd discuss it this quarter. He finally looked up and sighed, like I was exhausting him. Nina, you've been valuable. But it's time we bring in fresh perspective. Tyler understands where we're headed. Tyler doesn't know the difference between a sheer wall and a party wall, I said before I could stop myself. He leaned back, folded his arms, and gave me that smug, patronizing smile I'd seen him use on interns he didn't respect. Then maybe it's best if we part ways, effective immediately. Just like that, I was out. No severance, no exit interview, no recognition. He even had security watch as I packed my desk. I wasn't a partner, so I didn't even own the rights to my own designs. I walked out into the freezing rain, soaked in disbelief, watching the firm I helped build vanish behind a glass door I no longer had the code for. Worse, I watched through that same glass as Tyler strutted in wearing a bomber jacket and Yeezys, giving finger guns to the receptionist. I'd given 10 years to that place. 10 years of skipping holidays, ignoring migraines, working through heartbreak. And they replaced me with a nepotism case who barely knew how to open AutoCAD. I spent the next few days spiraling. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. I applied for a few jobs half-heartedly, but my spirit was crushed. Every time I opened my portfolio, I saw the work that didn't even have my name on it anymore. I wasn't just unemployed. I was erased. So when my best friend Tasha dragged me to a cabin upstate for a reset weekend, I figured, why not? I needed fresh air. A break. Something. We stopped at a dusty old gas station near the Catskills. I grabbed a coffee and on a whim threw $5 at a scratch-off ticket the cashier recommended. Big jackpot this week, he said. Only takes one lucky day. I scratched it half-heartedly that night while Tasha cooked dinner. I was going to toss it in the trash until I saw the numbers and froze. I'd won. Not just a little, the jackpot, $104 million. I dropped the card. My breath stopped. My hands went numb. Tasha saw my face and screamed louder than I did. I was no longer jobless. I was powerful. But here's where the story really begins. Because 3 weeks later, without anyone knowing it was me, I bought the entire building that housed Caldwell and Rourke. And that was only the first step. I wish I could say I felt triumphant when I signed the papers. That taking ownership of the building felt like sweet, clean revenge. But honestly, I felt hollow. Because no matter how many zeros were in my account, I couldn't erase the way I'd been discarded like I was nothing. I kept replaying it over and over. Rourke's smug tone, Tyler's idiot grin, the receptionist's pitying look as I carried out my box of things. I didn't want to just own the building. I wanted them to know. But Caroline, my lawyer, the genius Tasha found, convinced me to play it smart. Lay low, she said. Don't announce anything yet. Let them hang themselves a little more first. So I waited. I spent the next 3 weeks setting up shell companies, trusts, and business entities. With Caroline's help, I bought the building anonymously under a holding firm called Arcadia Grove Properties. I even kept the same building manager, Mr. Delaney, who didn't ask questions as long as the checks cleared. Then I started watching. I visited the building in disguise. Hoodie, ball cap, sunglasses. I sat in the lobby with a coffee and watched the company that used to be my life slowly rot from the inside. Tyler was a disaster. In just 2 weeks, 3 junior architects had quit. One of our biggest clients, an eco-resort developer, pulled out of their contract because Tyler forgot to submit updated plans before the zoning board deadline. And morale? Gone. Everyone looked tense, drained, like they were walking on broken glass. That should have made me feel better. But all I felt was rage. Not because they were struggling, but because they still had no idea what they'd lost. Then, one afternoon, I ran into Olivia, our former intern. She was grabbing lunch near the building and almost didn't recognize me. "Nina," she blinked. "Oh my God, I heard what happened. That was brutal." I shrugged. "Yeah, it sucked." She hesitated. "I probably shouldn't say this, but Rourke told everyone you left to pursue your own creative path, like it was your idea." My stomach flipped. "They're telling people I quit?" She nodded. "Yeah, and Tyler's been taking credit for the Avery Tower project." The Avery Tower was mine. I had pulled that client, designed every detail, even fought through city hearings to get it approved, and now he was parading it around like a participation trophy? I went home, sat in my apartment, and shook with fury. That's when I made my decision. No more hiding. The next morning, I emailed Mr. Delaney and asked for a full maintenance report on Caldwell and Rourke's office space. Minor things, AC inconsistencies, plumbing issues, lease terms. Just enough to send a formal notice of inspection. Then I booked a conference room in the building, my building, and scheduled a mandatory leaseholder meeting for Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. I made sure every single employee got the calendar invite. The subject line was simple: New property owner introduction, required attendance. And then, for the first time since I won the lottery, I walked into a designer boutique and bought myself a suit. Not flashy, not loud, just sharp, clean lines, power in fabric form. Tuesday came fast. I stood outside the glass doors where I'd once been escorted out. This time, I walked through like I belonged, because I did. Inside the conference room, the entire office had gathered. Whispers rippled when they saw me. Rourke blinked twice. Tyler turned pale. I walked to the front, placed my folder on the table, and smiled. "Good morning," I said. "My name is Nina Torres." A pause. "I'm the new owner of this building." Gasps. A coffee cup hit the floor. And then I looked Rourke straight in the eye. "And I think it's time we renegotiated your lease." The silence after my announcement was deafening. I stood at the front of that glass conference room, watching their faces twist from confusion to disbelief. Rourke's jaw clenched, his fake calm cracking. Tyler looked like he was about to be sick. One junior designer actually whispered, "Holy shit," under her breath. I let the silence hang a few more seconds before I spoke again. "I own the building now. Through Arcadia Grove Properties, every lease, every square foot." I flipped open the folder in front of me and pulled out the first notice. "Caldwell and Rourke is currently in violation of multiple terms in your lease. Failure to maintain workspace conditions, unauthorized renovations, and delinquent common area fees totaling over $36,000. Rourke finally stood. "Nina, this is ridiculous. You can't just walk in here and—" "I can," I said calmly. "And I have." I turned to the staff. This company replaced me with someone unqualified, erased my name from my own projects, and lied to all of you. They said I left on my own terms. They said I didn't care. Tyler jumped in. "We didn't lie. It was just easier that way." "Easier for who?" I snapped. "For you? The guy who blew a multi-million-dollar deal by missing a zoning deadline? Who let 3 of the most talented designers walk because he was too busy planning team-building yoga in the lounge?" A few employees hid their laughter. Someone clapped. I saw Olivia in the back. She gave me a discreet thumbs up. Rourke's face darkened. This is petty. You want revenge? Fine. But don't drag innocent people into your personal vendetta. Innocent? I laughed. I worked here for 10 years, built your biggest projects. You fired me without warning, without severance, and tried to bury everything I created. I held up a second folder. Which is why I'm giving your employees an offer. Everyone went quiet again. I'm opening my own firm, a new design agency focused on innovation, collaboration, and actual talent, fully funded, full benefits, competitive salaries, and no nepotism. I laid out contracts on the table. Anyone who wants to walk away from this disaster and join something better, something real, can sign today. No pressure, no hard feelings. Rourke's voice turned desperate. You're trying to poach my entire staff? That's illegal. No, I smiled. It's just capitalism. And then the chaos began. Half the room surged forward. Designers, assistants, even the office manager. They started flipping through the contracts, asking questions. Tyler kept shouting over them, but no one listened. Within 10 minutes, 12 employees had signed. Rourke just stood there, red-faced, helpless, watching his company fall apart in real time. But I wasn't done. About your lease, I said. You have 60 days to vacate, or I'll pursue legal action. You'll regret this, Nina, Rourke hissed. No, I said softly. I think I'll sleep better than ever. That should have been the end of it. But as I gathered my folders and headed out, Olivia caught up to me in the hallway. Hey, she whispered. I wasn't sure if I should tell you this, but I think there's something you need to know. I paused. Her eyes darted around nervously. A few months before you were fired, I overheard a phone call between Rourke and Tyler. They were discussing ways to force you out. What? I froze. She nodded. Tyler wanted your job. Rourke said you were too independent, that you'd never play nice with investors. So they planned it. Your firing wasn't sudden, it was orchestrated. I stared at her, stunned. They even changed project attributions in the system 2 weeks before letting you go, she added. You didn't lose your legacy, Nina. They stole it. And just like that, everything shifted. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about justice. I didn't sleep that night, not because I was afraid, because I finally had clarity. All the late nights, the meetings I wasn't invited to, the sudden shift in attitude before I got fired. Olivia was right. They didn't just let me go. They erased me. And now, I was going to make sure the entire industry saw it. I called Caroline first thing in the morning. Time to go public, I told her. She paused. You sure? I'm done playing nice. We worked fast. Within 48 hours, my new firm, Studio Vox, officially launched its website. But it wasn't just a site. It was a statement. We published a blog post titled The Hidden Cost of Nepotism in Architecture, with no names, but enough detailed examples that everyone would know who we were talking about. Poor project management, stolen credits, unethical terminations. The truth, laid out point by point, backed by timelines and documentation. We even included an anonymous tip line for employees across the industry to share their own stories of abuse, bias, or betrayal. Within hours, it went viral. LinkedIn, Twitter, Architecture Digest. My inbox exploded. Architects from LA to London were reaching out. Some were just offering support. Others wanted jobs. A few wanted to tell their own stories. But the best part? An email from Avery Holdings, the eco-resort client Tyler lost. Subject line, Let's talk. Turns out they'd been looking for a new design firm, and they hadn't known I was the original lead on their project until they saw the Studio Vox post. We signed a $12 million deal by the end of the week. That should have been enough. But I wasn't done yet. I sent a certified letter to Caldwell and Rourke with a formal demand. Publicly correct the project credits on every listing where my name had been removed. I gave them 72 hours. They didn't respond. So, I took it further. I contacted the American Institute of Architects and submitted a complaint with all the documentation Olivia had helped me gather. Time-stamped file changes, internal emails, even audio she'd secretly recorded from a meeting where Roark instructed someone to revise attribution before Nina's exit is finalized. It was damning. And it worked. 2 days later, Roark was served with an official notice of ethics investigation. His reputation, something he'd spent 30 years building, was crumbling fast. Tyler. He'd gone silent online. No posts, no videos, just a series of panicked voicemails I never returned. But the moment that truly broke them came the following week. I hosted the first Studio Vox networking night, a public event, free to attend, held on the top floor of the very building they were now being evicted from. I stood in the center of the glass atrium, surrounded by journalists, designers, clients, and new employees. Everyone sipping wine, admiring the renderings of our next big project. That's when Roark walked in. He looked hollow. His suit hung off his frame. His eyes were dark, like he hadn't slept in days. And Tyler followed close behind, his confidence completely shattered. "You really think this changes anything?" Roark said quietly, stepping up beside me. "This industry still belongs to people like me." I turned to him, calm. "Not anymore." He scoffed. "Enjoy your 15 minutes, but you'll never survive the politics. You don't have the connections." That's when Caroline stepped forward, holding a manila folder. "Oh, we have connections," she said smoothly. "In fact, this might interest you." She opened the folder and slid a paper across the table. Roark picked it up, read it, froze. His hands trembled. He read it again. It was a formal acquisition agreement, signed and notarized, confirming that Nina Torres had just purchased a controlling stake in Caldwell and Roark through an investment fund she secretly built over the past month. That's right. I didn't just take their building. I now owned their company. Roark stared at me, speechless. Tyler's mouth hung open. "You're fired," I said to both of them. "Effective immediately." The next morning, I sat in the corner office that used to belong to Roark. The nameplate had already been removed. The walls, once decorated with his framed awards, were bare. I'd had the maintenance team repaint everything, clean slate. I watched through the glass as Roark and Tyler packed up their things, security standing nearby to ensure there were no accidents. A few employees walked past without even looking at them. Others watched silently, wide-eyed. No one offered to help. Tyler was the first to crack. "This is insane!" he snapped, throwing a folder into a box. "You think you're better than us because you got lucky? You just had money handed to you." I walked to the doorway, calm and composed. "No, Tyler, I'm better than you because I earned respect. You were handed everything, and still managed to destroy it." He looked like he wanted to say more, but his voice caught in his throat. Roark, on the other hand, was quiet. He kept his head down, methodically placing items into a single box. No yelling, no pleading, just silence. Maybe he finally realized what it felt like to be powerless. I didn't expect the email that came later that afternoon from the American Institute of Architects. The ethics board had concluded their investigation. Roark's membership was permanently revoked. His license was being reviewed by the state board. A formal complaint had been filed with the National Licensing Bureau. If upheld, he could never practice again. It was over. But that wasn't the best part. A week later, during an industry panel, one of the moderators, an old client of Roark's, looked right at me and said, "Nina, you've changed the conversation. What you did wasn't just bold, it was necessary." And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I had to prove myself. I was enough, just as I was. Studio Vox grew faster than I ever imagined. We started signing young, underrepresented architects from across the country. People like Olivia, who is now our operations lead. People like the interns who once stayed silent in meetings. Now they had a voice. And the irony? The firm that fired me for being too independent became the foundation for something far more powerful, a company built on honesty, inclusion, and real talent. Tyler moved to Miami 6 months later, trying to start his own firm. It never launched. Turns out, without someone else cleaning up his mess, he couldn't design his way out of a shoebox. Rourke tried to sue me for hostile acquisition. It was thrown out. Turns out, buying a company through a legal investment fund with full documentation isn't hostile. It's just smart. The last time I saw him was outside the building, watching as a young black architect we'd just promoted walked in to take his old office. He didn't say a word. He just turned and walked away. And that felt right. I didn't need him to apologize. I didn't need anyone to validate me anymore. I'd already won. Not just in courtrooms or boardrooms, but in the kind of win that matters most. I had my dignity back, my voice, and a future I built myself. People ask me if I regret anything, if I'd do it all over again. The answer? Absolutely. Because sometimes you have to lose everything to find your true power. And when you finally rise, you make sure the people who tried to bury you are forced to watch. Comment the number 1 if you wanted that ending just as bad as I did. And don't forget to subscribe if you want more true stories like this one.